JPT sub and the July layout update. Opening up today's video with a wide shot of the layout here, kind of give you an idea of the size. It's a 4x8 layout with a scenic divider down the middle and fair amount of track work, but not too much. But the focus of today's layout is I want to talk about the changes that have been made this year and, well, over the last 12 months actually. If you saw the January layout updates, you saw that I had planned a bunch of changes for this year, and surprisingly I've pretty much accomplished most of them. So from here I'm going to take a look back at some of the things I talked about in January and some of the things that are done. And then I'm probably will look back farther into the year for the fall of 2025, and because that's really when the bigger changes started. And we'll see what the last 12 months has changed on the layout, and then we'll see where we're going to go from there. And so, first of all, thank you guys all for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy it. Let's start off with this corner of the layout right here. So actually, most of this is going to drift back into 2025. And this time last year, the park that you see at the front edge was not there. The tower was not there. The curved connector track was not there. Only the diamond was there, and those tracks, instead of ending at the edge of the layout like they did, were bumper tracks. So that was my first change, was adding in, one of my first changes was adding in this tower and adding that new connector track, which opened up some new operating possibilities for me. There was another change that went along with this that we'll look at in a few minutes, and I'll refer back to that it was part of the tower change when we get to it. That that also had to make to get this track operational. But the tower is a 3D printed model that I printed. The little shed on this side of the tracks is 3D printed. The gazebos were bought, but probably could have 3D printed those, I guess. The flag is a Woodland Scenics, but the flower bed around it and a lot of the benches are 3D printed here. Obviously added a lot of people. Figures are a big deal there. And just some touch-ups to the scenery. Obviously there's still probably a lot I could do here to make the scenery look better, but it's a huge improvement over what it was this time last year. So next I'm going to move the camera over a little bit, and we'll look at this the Starbucks you see behind it that's under construction there. On the screen now you're seeing, before I started redoing any of this, and obviously the Starbucks wasn't there. The propane dealer and scrap dealer were, but they had a totally different footprint. Then there's the gas station in the background there. You can see that empty lot there. So now we're transitioning over to, here's what it looks like today. You've got the Starbucks under construction. Again, another 3D printed model with some a lot of details added around the construction containers, the construction equipment, the food trailer back there. Across the street, at that empty section of lot by the gas station, has a Waffle House. It's another 3D print, and it's worth noting both of those, the Starbucks and the Waffle House, were models I found online, not ones that I designed myself. So, but then we get to the scrapyard and the propane dealer. So the propane dealer, everything is part of a Walters kit, except for the blast wall that's at the end of the tanks there. That was a 3D print, just something to, so the tanks facing the building, something to kind of help, more of a safety factor built in there. The scrapyard is all just commercial parts, vehicles. The wall, though, that's behind the the stacks of cars that's between that and the tank car, that's a 3D print. The road, actually, all the road that you see there is 3D printed, actually. So, and painted, and I added striping to it. It replaced the road that was there. It was really not great. The building lighting is still a work in progress, but it's better than it was. So that's a change as well. Then we'll kind of turn over this way here. The Starbucks was a big ad for 2026. This was still part of that footprint that was the propane dealer and scrapyard. As you can also see, the track configuration has been completely rearranged there. Behind it there, at this intersection, there's traffic lights at that intersection now, and lighted vehicles. That's all something else that was new there. Then we'll move over here and look at it this way. Shifting over a little bit where you can see down the side street there. Looking down this street between the two buildings and seeing the crossing flashers with the crossing blocked, and then a car stopped at the crossing with the brake lights on. That was a scene that I really wanted to develop for a long time. I mean, it's kind of been there, but it didn't look that great. But now with that there, and then the traffic lights at the intersection, it really made that scene that I wanted there. So I'm really happy with how that turned out. And then if we, I'm gonna tilt the camera down here for you guys. The Dunkin' Donuts, this was a model I found online as well, but I modified it some and added the drive-through setup for it and 3D printed. So, and again, this originally probably was just an open, going to be a business there in January, but as you can see now, it ended up turning into this. And with moving the that propane dealer and scrap dealer over, it gave me a lot of opportunity here. So I'm really happy with that. So let's see what we got next here. Here we see January, where the road crossing is, still the old track configuration. There's a not really much to the left of the street there. To the right, you can see there's that recycle center, and then it leads into where the propane dealer was. So, and now as we transition to today, you can see we've got a Rambling Wreck Auto Tech, so the auto repair shop there. This was 100% 3D designed and built by me. So I'm extra proud of that because I did it all myself there. And it turned out really great, I think. And lit at, you kind of can't see it from this angle, but in the very first bay to the left, there's a car up on the racks, but there's a mechanic underneath the car working on it, and then you've got the car at the far right bay pulling in, and the lights kind of give it the impression of movement there. But yeah, that scene turned out great, and obviously we moved the road crossing away from there and over to the left, and made a regular four-way intersection there, which really looks a lot better. And then also, as you can kind of see here in the foreground, a little radio tower and a little building to go with it, to just kind of railroad related structure for railroad communications, a crew change point, things like that. So that's a typical little type of setup you might see here around the U.S. Then, but again, lighting is still kind of in the works back there on the buildings, but some of them the lights weren't working at all. Now they're working. It's one that's there's two there that still need the lighting wired up. They have the lighting, just haven't wired it up yet. So that's the little things left to do from the change, but most of the big stuff now, as you can see, is done. And then we can kind of pan this way just a little bit here. We'll stop right there. So you can see the fire station, again, another 3D print building that came out well. The church, we flip back here for a second, you can see there's the way that intersection went, there was an ice cream shop there, and then the church on the side street with no parking lot. So now that we transition back, obviously you can see, with that track reconfiguration, allowed the street to continue on straight. We got a parking lot added in front of the church, which I think really changed the look of it a lot. And I'll give a shout out to my friend Dan twice in this video. Once because he was the one that suggested I add the white cross to the front of the church there, and I think that ended up being a really nice detail touch there, so I'm really happy with that. But then we got our fire station in the foreground, as we just talked about before. That's where track would have run straight through that. So that scene, I think that whole intersection and scene came together really well. Again, gave me an opportunity to add more flashing crossing lights and reconfigure the track for some more switching opportunities and operations. So this part, again, flashback here, you can see that back to today. It's really different, isn't it? Some nice changes. I'm really happy with how that's going. And then we're going to move down and see where we moved the ice cream shop to. So what you see here is the old track configuration. You can see the two buildings, which is a furniture factory and a meat packing plant, as what the kits were actually sold as. Back on the on this side, on the back side of this siding here, and this area, and then it really wasn't super finished. This was kind of the one spot of the layout I'd never done a lot with, but these two buildings were a little bit special to me, and so as we transition forward, the first thing you might want to notice is at the bottom right hand corner of the screen here, where you can see like there's a white spot in the ballast on the foreground. That used to be where the third track, the foreground track, switched out and went the whole length of the layout down to where we added that reconfiguration at the tower. But with the new siding here, was able to extend the street straight down, and then the two buildings obviously have a new home here. These buildings were they're old Helgen kits. I think they were originally released in the late 60s, early 70s. I bought both of them new in package in probably 1982, 1983, somewhere in that area. And they were the first two in-scale kits I ever built, so they're special to me, and they have to have a place on the layout. So this worked out just perfect. So the meat packing plant's no longer a rail-served facility, and I'm not really sure I want to call it a meat packing plant anymore, but it has a nice home back there on the back side. And then our furniture factory here in the foreground has got still siding served, and it's got a couple of British box cars there in front of it. It also works very well when I have the U.S. equipment on here as a with a 40 or 50 foot box car, standard height box car. And then in front of the grain elevator there, that was a spot that was never done. It was just there, and the road kind of ended in a funny way and everything. So we've added a parking lot, a little refuel tank for the yard spotter, and an office for the grain elevator. And I still have to add some decals to that, and probably a few more details in there. But as I pan around here, that whole scene here, the trees here in the foreground were there, but that was kind of it. So now we've got a intersection back here for the side street going around the grain elevator. The truck has a proper way to get in and out of the unloading bins. We've got a little shed on the end of that right now that I'm not sure if it's going to stay or not. The longer it sits there, the more I like it. But that whole area finally looks finished, so I'm super excited about that part. And then we'll kind of move down here and look at the last little bits of change for this year. Before I move around and look at it from the longer view here, this street was here, so there was an intersection here. However, that street kind of went out, and just past where the bus is there, it made a curve to the left, and there was no crossing back there. So we changed that. I've got a temporary traffic light. You can kind of see that in there. I'm not super thrilled with it, so it's probably not going to stay, or it may for the time being until I decide something new to go there. But or a different type of traffic light. But we'll see. And now let's move around and look at it look at the street from the other side here. And then here's our last view of the changes that were made this year. And obviously that was changing this street from the curving to the right and off over to that intersection we were just looking at, to an intersection with a flashing amber, flashing yellow caution light there, and the crossing signals and a crossing added in that connects into that street and kind of gives that street a better flow down into the city and gives the traffic somewhere to go. And then right there after the crossing the tracks, there's a traffic light and a road that goes off to the left that we saw from the other side there that comes down. And there's a roadway trailer there toward the left that's sitting where the road ends right now. And spoiler alert, 2027, I'm going to extend that road, shorten that the sidings there just a little bit and extend that road over to connect into another road. But probably more changes come to that side of the layout, and I'm still thinking about it, so we're not going to even get into that. But so there you have it. This whole side of the layout, basically, there's really not anything left on here that hasn't been touched. And I may go back and point out something here I see that I didn't talk about. So, but even the buildings that were there that you saw had to be taken off to redo the streets and everything. So they were kind of cleaned up, put back in place. Some of the lighting's worked on, and some of them are still not 100% back to anchored down and everything. But for the most part, the layout's back together and presentable for now. So super excited. When we were talking about the tower, I was mentioning that there was one other track configuration change that had to be made for that to work operationally, and that is this crossover in the foreground right here. That actually, as you see, it's crossing from the track closest to the camera to the middle track there. I actually had to reverse it, so here you go as you see it in the today crossing over. So that way, basically what that did was made that so when the trains come around the connector track by the tower and come around this way, they're able to cross back over onto the main line. The track in the foreground that extends off to the right just ends at the end of the layout. It's someday future expansion. The same thing over by the tower where that diamond was. So that was really the only big change on this side of the layout. Maybe a few details here and there, but nothing exciting. Flashing back here to the beginning of the year, behind the building with the Sprite billboard on it, you can see there's a water tower, an older style water tower. That's an old model power built up kit that, if I remember right, it's supposed to have a flashing red light on the top of it, but the light quit working and I couldn't get the tower apart to do a repair on it. So I kind of just pulled it off the layout, set it aside, and it's a future project. And in the meantime, I printed this 3D, as we transition back here, you can see I printed this 3D model of a modern water tower and put back there. And it works, and it's growing on me the longer it's been here. But I'm not sure if I want to keep that there or move it somewhere else on the layout and get that other tower fixed and back on the layout. So we'll see where we go from there. So back down to this end of the layout to finish up the update. I don't think I mentioned this crossing that's here by the Chick-fil-A billboard with the cows. That was a bridge this time last year. That was probably one of the first things I did. I never was happy with how that bridge worked out, so it's gone. And now a level crossing with flashing crossing gates, and the setup, the whole deal's really come together there. And I'm super happy that I've accomplished what I set out to do in January. And even this time last year, I was already kicking around the ideas of changes, but made some, as you saw. And then January brought the start of the really big changes, because I wanted to wait till after the holidays. But with that said, that's going to finish up my update portion here for July. And it's late July when I'm recording this, but you're watching this today on August 1st when it comes out. And I am at the National Model Railway Association National Train Show in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So that means the July new arrivals that you're getting ready to see are very light, because I was kind of holding out in July, not buying anything, just so I can see what I can find at the train show today. And I'm sure at the end of August you'll see an update on where that's at. Also, during July I did do some work on the Oxford layout, the Oxford station layout. I did not do a Oxford layout update in July, but I'll have one coming later in August, probably closer to the end of the month, to update you on what little bit I've done there. So I've done a lot, even though it doesn't look like a lot. So we'll talk about that when we get to it. So with that said, let's move on to the new arrivals. First new arrivals of July are here. A pair of Digitrax DZ126IN 6-pin decoders. Have a upcoming use for these. They came from Pfeiffer Hobby Supply. They're closing up shop, and Mike and Robin are retiring. And wish them a great retirement, but also some fantastic deals as they go. So that's how we started out the month. Here's a hot new arrival, an Oxford diecast fire truck. Here it is out of the jewel case, and let's take a closer look at it here. So, sorry about my fingers there, but you see, great looking truck. So I've got this in the white livery as well. And one thing I noticed that's different is this little piece right here, these two pipes that stick up. Might be something worth adding to the other truck if I can figure out how. So anyway, nice new addition there. Our next new arrival is another Oxford diecast model. This one's the Daimler hearse. Sounds a bit morbid, but it's one I've been looking for a while, because I have the church with the cemetery next to it, and the Woodland Scenics figures for a funeral scene in the cemetery. So I have a stand-in car now that's needs to go away, and this will replace it and be a lot better. So let's see how she looks out of the box. Here we see it out of the box here, a good looking car. I'm going to kind of turn it where you guys can see it here. Probably easier just to do it that way. Hold it up here, there we go. Nice chrome work on the front there. The grille looks really nice. Passenger side's got those long viewing windows, and I always wondered why they have those like that, but anyway. Looking at the back, yeah, looks good. Should fit perfect on the layout. Here's a shocking July new arrival, another gondola. This one's a Missouri Pacific. It's one of the roundhouse kits. Here it is with the box opened up so that price sticker's not in the way, just to give you a better look at the car body. This one will probably stay either as is, or I may potentially change those reporting marks from MP to UP and fade out the Buzzsaw logo on the right hand side a little bit, and maybe weather up this car. We'll see what the future brings for it. Possibly a video somewhere down the road of what we do with it. The last new arrivals for July are some Woodland Scenics linker plugs and splicer plugs, and some 28 gauge red and black 2 conductor hookup wire to repair some things I messed up under the layout. And that's going to do it. So let's head to our running session, and we'll check in on George and Cato, and we'll wrap this up for the July update. Before we finish up the July updates, George and Wally Cato wanted to check in and say hello to everyone. You can see the boys are doing great, enjoying life. Now back to the trains. This brings us to the end of the July updates. I'd like to thank you all for watching. Appreciate it very much. Hope you'll take a minute to click the like button. And if you have any comments or questions, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll be sure to do my best to answer them. I know during this video we took a look at the changes that have happened over the last 12 months. It's been a lot. Definitely like where the layout's at right now. I do still have some things to do on this side that we're looking at. There's a couple of lights that need to be fixed. I accidentally bumped some wires working on something else, and I need to correct that problem. But otherwise, everything's great. I've been enjoying running trains during July. I was gone for a little bit of July, and we had a couple of system upgrades at work, so that's taken away a lot of time this month. But other than that, it's been a great month, and hope you guys enjoyed the look And we'll see you next time right here on the JPT Sub.